Dear participants, welcome to webinar Improving Project Management Teaching in Higher Education. This event is organized by IPMA Special Interest Group Smarter University. My name is Veniamin Kizeev, and I'm a Global Head Smarter University SIG IPMA and board member within Global Education. And today I'm moderating this event. Today my co-moderator, Dr. Ekaterina Khalimon, State University of Management, and also Young Crew IPMA member. The webinar will take 1 hour. During this time, we will hear our speaker and can join the discussion at the end of the session. You can ask question in the chat. Please do this if you have any questions. We will be happy to answer of this. And I also remind you that at the end of our event, all registered participants will receive IPMA digital badge. I also want to share some short information about our IPMA Smarter SIG group. Just give me a second. It's a few words of what we do and what we have. The biggest goal of Smarter University SIG is to promote project management and best project tools for university in both sides, for university project and also for university methods for teaching. It's always interesting for our participants. And also we have these 3 focus areas: project management learning, development of project management system at universities, and also multidisciplinary scientific and innovation project. We have a lot of target groups from university management, university teachers, professors, and also some parts for students. And we have a lot of opportunities in our Smarter University SIG group. You can be expert and you can share your experience about project management in university, be a speaker of events or participate in research groups. Just send information for us if you have any thoughts or some questions about project management in university. And also we always appreciate if people help us with some organizational questions, events, research groups, and so on and so on. Please share for us this idea. You can just send this information for me personally, for our website, or in some other case. And I suppose today we have a good example of leadership, because Steven sent for us this proposal about this really great topic, because how we teach our future project managers, I suppose it's really very important things, because it's really about our future in the end, and it's really about mission of university. And I like to present our today's speakers, and now I give the floor to Dr. Steven Nijus. Steven has PhD in social science from the University of Twente, and I really like his experience and his study about teaching project management. How I said, I suppose it's really super important, and we see that today we have more than 100 registration in these webinars. It means that this topic is really very, very hot, and we had a lot of challenge about teaching project management. Steven, thank you for your demonstration, some leadership in this question, and thank you for your study and your, I want to say products, because it's really not only thoughts and not only methods, it's some products. Thank you for your readiness to be speakers today, and floor is yours.
Thank you, Benjamin. Yes, as I said before this meeting started, I'm a little bit anxious because this is sort of my life's work. It's my PhD research, because I noticed that in the university that I was working, that we do teach a lot of project management to students, but there was no real thought behind it, and there was no questioning whether are we doing this right. So I focused on that question, and in the end, now I'm a graduation coordinator at a master in project management, but my study is focused on those curricula that do project management as a side module. So for instance, building engineering, engineering, and those kind of things. Next to that, some people may have seen my face because I'm also the chair of IPMA Netherlands. So I'm also active in the Council of Delegates and some work groups. The contents of these presentations. Firstly, why should we teach project management and why should we need to improve that? Then I'm going to talk about project management competences, and I've given that also a side title saying the bad and the ugly. I will go into deep why I call this the bad and the ugly. And then in the end, I will revisit those competences, but then look at a process focus. So first, critique on education has been around since education has started. But why do we need to teach project management, and what should we teach when teaching project management? How should we teach project management actually? So first, why should we teach project management? And of course, I'm preaching to the choir here. Most people know that we need to teach project management, but in science, you can only convince other people if you really prove that it's necessary. So project management is becoming more and more important. It's in the first world, it's 1/3 of the economy already. You can see that in job advertisements. 48% of job advertisements ask for project management as a skill. And therefore, we can see that a lot of curricula in project management show an interest in teaching project management. You see that in engineering, you see that in ICT, you see that in business administration. There's a lot of effort in teaching project management. However, of course, there's always an however in research. There's always critique on what we do. First and foremost, educators do not agree on what should be taught. They do not agree on how it should be taught. And they do not agree on what should have the focus. And of course, there is an interest in soft skills, but there's no proper definition in what are these soft skills actually. And there is more critique to be given on how we teach project management. Because graduates do find it the most important skill, but they are not satisfied by the way it's conveyed. The graduates think everything should be included. And that's a lot if you take project management. And also a majority thinks all these aspects are insufficiently addressed. So we need to make choices because, as I said, my research is about curricula that have project management as a side module. So a very big subject and not enough room. So we need to focus. We can only focus on small effects. If you want to know even more about the critique on education, how it's been done, you can look at my article. I can even send it to you. Just find me on LinkedIn. It's published, so you can also find it by using search engines. But basically, if you look more in depth on the execution of project management education, you can see that there are discongruences. So we need to teach project management. And actually, we do need to improve teaching of project management, because there's ample reason to teach it. We teach it, but we do it poorly. And basically, that's understandable, because there were no clues available on what we should include in our education on project management. Because if you look at the competence research, and that's also a published article of mine, there's the bad and there's the ugly. If you look at the 30 publications that I found on project management competences. They used a total of 721 competences, but there were 572 unique project management competences in those researches. Only 20 of them were used in 3 or more studies. So there is no common ground in the research. And even if they were the same, they did not necessarily intend the same, because definitions were lacking. The competences were really skewed. So they asked a lot about the active job, but not about knowing the organization, for instance. And of course, scientifically, they asked for, is this important? And I'm not going in too deep for this, but what's important for a project manager could be also important for any other job, like working with computers. So these early studies didn't supply an answer in what should we do when we teach project management, which competences are really important to incorporate in teaching project management. I did do a study on what defining project management competences were, and you see a list of here. That's the top 5. I found 20 that were scoring more than half, but as you can also see, they are not universal. So the highest scoring percentage, knowing the organization, is only scored by 2/3 of project managers. So this does not supply an answer. If you want to be an educator and say, I want an evidence-based list of competences, which I do want to incorporate, this is not an answer that you can work with. So the most difficult part was, what's the influence of context? Could we see that engineering project managers use different sets of project competences than ICT project managers? Well, my conclusion is that the context has a strong influence on needed competences. However, the context is a multi-level monster with items like budget, product, phase, novelty, complexity, technology, pace, application area, complexity, innovation, application area again, complexity, strategic importance, contract type, phase, culture. And these are only the things that have been researched, because there's more in this context. Experience and project management knowledge of the project sponsor, for instance, availability of the project sponsor, etc., etc., etc. There are so many combinations possible. There's more combinations than there's projects. So we cannot use context as a defining factor for teaching project management. And at this point, doing a PhD, which I wanted to develop a real product for educators, I was kind of desperate. So I looked at a process focus. And this is something you most probably know as PMBOK or as ISO 21500. And this is a matrix of all processes that are possible in project management. And I didn't put in the dots where ISO thinks there are processes. I just used an empty matrix. And if you look at all respondents, I asked, where is the priority for junior project managers? Then you can see that there is a pattern here. And this is a real significant pattern, because the chance that one cell is marked by as a priority by all those respondents is so much, it is already outside of any probability pattern. That there be 10 is even less probable. So this is a real pattern. This is a pattern supplied by our respondents. And then if I look at the experience my respondents have, for instance, being a junior project manager, an experienced project manager, or just a student, then you can see that in these patterns there is an overlap. And if I look at what kind of context are you working in, and then what is your product type as a project manager, then there's more groups saying the same. And if I look at in which context, government, health, commercial, are you using this, then there's even more common priority. And this is actually, statistically speaking, much more reliable than just a big group saying this is the pattern. This pattern has been repeated by at least 4 subgroups, and just the first one. So I didn't even compute it with all the other groups again with it. The probability of 4 subgroups choosing 10 cells together as a priority is immensely low. So it's not by chance. This is a real pattern here. However, there is a slight, what we call a slight difference of opinion in the implementing column. And implementing, and especially integration, is therefore not as represented in the overall picture as it should have been. So based on my interview with a few teaching experts, teaching project management, and also acting as project managers, we've added 1 extra cell in the total priority matrix. Of course, one cannot teach any process without giving a general understanding of project management to the students. And if I go back, you can see that there is a very high tendency of including initiating scope. But ISO thinks there's no process there. So we all agree that it should be in there, but we don't know which process is in there. That's interesting for next research. And more importantly, several of these processes, especially in implementing and controlling, can only be conveyed in education by giving them understanding. We cannot have them experience this, because then we need too many live projects, which we can doubt that the real life world is willing to give to our students. So if I look at some extra data I got, and this is important because what you can see is that experienced, the E in this picture, and senior project managers have as focus, is that they sort of overlap with the junior. So there is a slight difference going from junior to experienced to senior, but it's not that big. So in the end, I wanted to help education, but to improve project management teaching. And I went on a journey to find out what should we teach. And I couldn't find any attribute-focused competence that I could recommend that should be in. But I could find a very nice common ground of processes that have a high priority for junior project managers to understand before they start with their first job. Since I'm in education, I'm going to repeat the message again. Sorry. Project management teaching is necessary because it's very important and it needs to improve. Improvement can be found by addressing the high priority processes for junior project management after addressing a general understanding of project management. And there's a typo here. Understanding the high priority processes is a desirable level. And that's coming back to my own critique, because a lot of universities in their project management courses claim that their students are able to perform project management to project success in any type of project. And of course, we know that in practice, that's not really true. Okay, that's 12 years of working and research in about 20 minutes. So there's ample time for Q&A, because I really like to discuss with the rest of the participants what they think of my findings and how usable they think my findings are. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Yeah.
How can I stop sharing? Because it says new share, but stop share. There it is.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Steven. It's a really hard and difficult task to make a short speech about so big research distance of your life, but you did this very well. And I suppose it's really interesting information for all of us. And friends, now time for question. Please write question in the chat or in the question and answer section. I will voice questions. And now I want to give the floor to my co-moderator, Ekaterina, for the first question or maybe comments.
Yes, thank you very much, Steven. It was a pleasure to listen to you, because we, as practitioners of project management teaching, we have lots of information to share, and it is much more than just one session like this. So it will be very good to make like a round table and to share our experiences. But maybe in some briefly words, you can say maybe some secrets or special tools of techniques for PM teaching. So what do you think, what are the best tools to teach project management for students more effective?
Okay, thank you for this question. Of course, I've studied the way we convey project management in several types. I've looked at all course descriptions in Holland, just over 300. I've looked at course descriptions of universities that were considered front runners in this area, and I looked at all the literature I could find on project management teaching. What I found is that my first and foremost conclusion is that we have a tendency to use project-based learning as teaching project management. And I have a strong opinion on that, because if you just put students in a group, call that project-based learning, and don't help them with how should you do this, or are there any specific methods, or teach them several methods to do this, and not have a real project manager responsible for managing the project, students don't really learn project management. So there's a lot of extra things that you need to do to make project-based learning really about learning project management. And it should be a real project. And most of the projects in higher education, because of the nature of higher education, are just making a plan. We cannot have all our civil construction students design and build bridges. It's just not possible. So it's just about making a plan of how to build a bridge. So you do not experience the effects of your choices. Which brings me back to another thing that has been highly promoted in literature, but hardly used in practice: simulation or gamification of project management teaching. There are a very large examples of simulation using as teaching tool in project management. And the only problem with that is that they didn't define what should we learn the students. So if you do not know what you're teaching, it doesn't matter which tool you're using. So with these, you could say, for instance, we'd like to focus on this process with the simulation. And then you could design a simulation around that. I know so much about this subject. Sorry.
Yes. Thank you very much. Just some words to add. It is so it is somehow different. I think if we're teaching. If we want our students to know how to do projects, construction projects, or some other types of projects, it is really difficult because usually project management programs are implemented and are taught at universities, usually not technical ones. And those students who choose management as direction of study, and they do not choose construction as their direction of study. So it is more about managing team, managing processes. It is not about construction projects. But still, you're quite right that it is an issue, and the teacher should also always think about what about to teach. Maybe I can also share one not bad, I think, experience at our university, that from the third course, so we try to dive with our students into such kind of event projects, because event project, it is not so difficult as construction one, for example, but it shows, and students can practice how to collaborate, how to plan project, how to organize it on the territory of the university or outside the university. And it is how they can understand, I will never be project manager, or I like to be project manager, and that's how I understand how it works.
Yeah, that's in the literature that's referred to as service learning, and I've seen excellent examples of that. The problem is, I'm on a university that has roughly 3,000 students per year that need to be taught project management. And we cannot put 3,000 of those events in a year. That's basically the biggest problem that we have. The volume of students needing to learn project management is way too big to put that on the live surrounding of the university, or to university students as well. But it's a great idea, because you actually have a project with a budget, with a goal, with team, etc. It's a very good idea.
Yeah,
yes,
thank you
very much for your comments.
Yeah, and we touched a good topic about practice tools as a tools for teaching project managers. And I want to add in this place a question from our participants, from Louise. Students of project management masters ask for practical knowledge to perform as project managers or PMO analysis. How to be more practice oriented? It was really great case about some events, but how to be more practice oriented in general? What's the tools we have?
That's why a lot of universities, and I also saw the question of Amin about the difference between polytechnical schools, bachelor-oriented universities, and more theory-oriented universities. Students want to have practical experience and practical support for their working environment. And of course, and in a lot of cases you can do that. But if you really want them to experience project management, you should really have them experience the full life cycle of a project. And that's difficult. But you can have them work together in groups. You can make sure that the group has some kind of conflict, so that it needs really team building. Those things you can do. You can have them get practical experience on, for instance, negotiating with a project sponsor. So there are a lot of things that you can at least try to have them practical experience. Then, of course, in education, the word transfer comes up. So they have this practical experience in one thing, and then they should use that practical experience in their in another location. And students find that difficult to see that they have experience and they can use that experience in a new module or new subject. And then comes the question, is that practical experience more on polytechnical education or bachelor-oriented universities than in theoretically oriented universities? In my research, I did not find any difference between those universities. So what they want to teach their students, what they actually teach their students, and how they teach it, it's all roughly the same. The only difference between my data set and the data set of the front runners in project management is that the front runners in project management are a little bit lower on what they promise that the student's ability is at the end of the course. So they are a little bit more realistic what you can achieve in education if you are limited to understanding and some practical experience in some skills.
Yeah, it's super interesting, to be honest, and this information is shocked me, to be honest, about that we don't have a difference in this case. And I want to voice next question from Bill. How is teaching project management different than teaching general management?
Oh, that's a very interesting question, Bill, which I didn't really research. What I did do is I used a competence taxonomy based on general management to look at how can I look at the studies in project management competences. And I found that the general management competence taxonomy was to a very large extent usable for project management competences. There were a few things that I needed to add to make it fully comparable, which I say, okay, I need that because they are in those studies and I cannot find it in the general management taxonomy. But I dare say that several of those additions would be normal for general management as well. So there's not much difference if you just look at the taxonomy base. Then, of course, I can give you the normal answer that general management is focused on keeping the process alive and project management is focused on getting a change. So it's more disruptive. But in general, the taxonomy looks very much the same. And I do think that most competence will look the same. It's about your horizon that you're looking at. But this is speculative. I didn't do the research.
Mm-hmm. Okay, it's interesting because we have a lot of questions in our chat and Q&A section about the difference between general management teaching and project management teaching. Thank you, Henry. Thank you, Bill, about this question. And one more question about methodology of teaching. Should the lectures in project management be a combination of cases plus theory? It's
okay.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing. I do think that you can really learn by example, but that's also something that I'm convinced of and which I didn't really study. I think it should be always a combination of different things. And I do think that the teacher of project management should have some experience in project management, at least some experience. It should not be a very experienced project manager, because then you get the difference if a chess grandmaster tries to teach you how to chess if you don't know the basic rules, that there's too much discrepancy between the teacher and the student. But if the teacher can help students by examples from his own practice, it really gets alive. So and of course you should have case studies and preferably even real life examples. If we're talking about, for instance, leadership in project management, in our university we have 130 students this year. So we broke them up into groups of 5, and each group is going to observe a real project management team for about 2 hours, observing the leadership style and the context. So what's the looking for the right word here? forget it. And the culture, looking for the culture in the organization and whether the culture of the team fits the culture of the organization, so that and they go to observe those things and make notes so that they can see that what we teach them in theory is something else than what happens in practice. So I think there should really be a balance of theory, cases, preferably live cases, to make students understand that project management is not a complete exact science.
Yeah, completely true. Completely true. And it's interesting. I just waited when somebody asked this question, because you said about gamification and simulation and so on. And I waited when somebody asked about AI. And
I see the question.
Yeah. What do you think about using AI in project management teaching? Is it good for us? Maybe we completely need to change our approach to teaching because we have ChatGPT and other model AI. And what maybe you have some experience in
oh yeah,
yes, it's a question for both Steven and Ekaterina.
Well, Ekaterina, you go first then, because I've been talking so much.
Okay, then thank you very much. I have some experience to share. Maybe it can also be interesting. So this year in spring, we launched the experience. It is a real experience. So we had a contract with one company whose product was Telegram chatbot that is called the electronic tracker for student startups. And as our university is very much involved in different acceleration programs, we have won some grants, and we implement some acceleration programs without grants. And this experience was interesting for us. How can we do the same way with our students, but without live tracker, yes, without coach, without mentor. But we had some leader trackers who guided this process, and if there were some problems, so we were here to solve all these issues. And we launched this experience in April, and it was finished in June. So we gave lots of feedback to the company that we had contract with, and it was the company who developed this chatbot. And we understood that it is real. It is. We have several results, and if this product will be somehow improved, so we can launch it, and why not? So it is not so how can we say, to implement AI in project management teaching, it is not something fantastic. So it is a real life, and for example, this experience showed to us that we can do it if we develop this product on a very high level. So that's our case, and my opinion is that we should do it. Steven, what about you?
Yeah, I really think that we can really benefit from the development of AI currently in teaching project management, and especially in simulation / gamification of project management education, because students also need to understand, and a lot of simulation tools don't have AI, of course. So if you do the same exercise in the computer and you know which buttons to push, then you come to a great result. And that's not real life in project management. You don't know which buttons to push because the buttons keep changing during your project. And the next project, you have way different buttons. I'm saying that from my 40 years of experience as a project manager. So basically, what I think that AI can really supply us, that students, if they go through a simulation to understand a process, that they can do the process again, and then find that they need to find different buttons to push. And because that's real life, and since we cannot put all our students in everyday real life projects at once, because they're still learning, it's rather that they experience these things in a safe environment. And I think that AI, of course, it has its setbacks at this point, but I think it will develop in a way that we can really use this. I do need to, I see some questions also in the chat. Bill, your question is completely correct. My answer would be no. They cannot really develop competences without understanding the project life cycle.
I also, yeah, continue, please. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, I really think there is a strong thing in AI in teaching, but they also should learn, our students, that AI could also be a beneficial tool to use when being a project manager. I know several project managers that now use AI to produce the template-driven progress reports, and they just feed 10 numbers in the things, and these are the numbers from our progress. Please write a progress report for me. It only takes them 20 minutes to supply the numbers, and they don't need to spend a full day writing. They still need to check, of course, whether the AI got the numbers on the right locations.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this perspective about technology and how we can react on this. But it's really interesting because it's about our future as project managers and also as a teacher. It's a very interesting discussion. And next question about some other perspective, other points. Thank you, Marina, for this question. Marina sent information that in my case, I find it difficult to get students to understand the usefulness of project management. It's about motivation of students also. And also problems arise in deciding how to evaluate the knowledge acquired by the students. Any recommendations in your research about these two different questions, I suppose, about motivation and about evaluation?
Motivation is in higher education, and for me, I was amazed to see that in higher education we still need to motivate students. It's not my style, so I really need to go to a different level of how do we motivate students. And of course, it's rather difficult to motivate them through examples of great projects, because what we now know as great projects had several project managers sacked during the process. For instance, the Sydney Opera House, everybody agrees as a great landmark, but it's way over budget, way over time planning, and it's still not fully waterproof. So by all iron triangles, it's not a successful project, but it is a landmark. No, everybody knows it. So what's success and how do you achieve it, and what's the role of the project manager is very difficult to explain to students with so little experience in real life and in projects. And that's a real problem of how to motivate students to learn project management. What we see in our currently higher education in Holland is, especially if they are doing, for instance, an ICT education because they like programming, they're not really interested in all soft skills surrounding the programming, which they still need to learn. And they consider project management an unnecessary soft skill. Again, using cases, using examples, maybe have someone with project management experience talk to them. And the best way to motivate students, in my experience, is still having a just graduated student explain them how important this subject is.
Yes, Stephen, just to add as a motivating factor, I think that the best motivation factor can be the direct contact with the company, because all students, they are hurrying to get their job. And if they get this direct contact with the company needs, so it's the best motivation factor.
Yeah, I know, really, and working for a real life company really helps. But then again, there are still students to say, let me do the program in project management is not really my style. And that's okay, of course. But if you really want to motivate students to learn project management, because you need to, because it's in your end terms, then there is a motivational problem. And I don't have the golden key or the golden bullet for that. And there was a second part of that question, and I forgot that.
About evaluation knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah, this is also again something that everyone in higher education is struggling with. If you do a multiple choice exam, it's very hard to test whether they really understand it or they just learned a couple of base answers. That's very difficult. And there has been some literature in this, and I was firstly worried about the basics. What should we teach, and not how should we evaluate whether we taught that right. There is some literature about how to evaluate whether students really understand project management, but it's in its infant shoes, as we would call that in the Holland. So it's not really very big developed yet. And of course, I'm in with this question, but I don't have a definitive answer, because if you only look at a project plan, you don't know whether they really analyzed it. And of course, how can you judge the quality of a project plan? The proof of the pudding is in the eating. So if you cannot execute a project plan, how can you be sure that the students really did it? Yeah, you can see whether the chapters are there and whether the text is good, but then you're basically checking if whether the student uses ChatGPT to write their project plan. So that's another very important difficulty and hurdle in project management teaching, which I didn't dig into yet. So if anyone has any suggestions, please contact me, and I would really like to follow up on that.
Yeah, we already see that one colleague contacted you already via linked ID, and you have some ideas about your research.
Great.
Okay, super.
And there is a yes, sorry. This person is called Alfredo Armijos, and he asked also a question about this tendency, which I think is common for different countries, about reducing the duration of master's degree programs from 18 and 24 months to 10 and 12 months. So what do you think about, is it a great idea or not?
Yeah. First, the time difference. I think the time difference is a big disadvantage. Project management is a very big subject. In Holland, we are only allowed to have a 1-year master's program at our university, because otherwise students need to pay the full educational sum instead of having a lot of subsidy by the government. And of course, if you ask our team, how much time do we need double to convey the subject, to really have them experience all kinds of things. It's just not enough. But that's the problem of all curricula in higher education. It's just not enough. And so we need to work with these constraints. If I look at my research, you can see that, for instance, Project Management Institute advises 30 ECs, or roughly half a year of study, to be dedicated to project management in any curriculum that wants to teach project management. In practice, it's roughly about 8 ECs on average that's been taught. And I didn't find any curriculum that actually came to more than 15 ECs dedicated to project management. And of course, there are minors, but those are not compulsory. So, and even the minors are not really getting to the 30 ECs. So, lack of room in any curriculum is always there. The other part of the question, how do I see this development? I think it's very good that we have specialized masters in project management. Of course, I'm working with one of them. How could I say differently? But I think it deserves a specialized master.
it's interesting. Yeah, point. Thank you. And I suppose we partly answered for question of Yuri, and I see that in 2 or 3 times we have the same question about the level of teaching and different level of teaching. I voice question of Sakura. Do you think there or should be different level of teaching project management between level of degree and level of masters?
If it's a master dedicated to project management, there should be, of course, definitely a difference than normal masters in, for instance, civil engineering that also give some emphasis to project management. But if we put those specialized masters aside, then you should look at, do the people who employ our students, do they think differently about what they should be knowing? I didn't research that, but I can understand if someone with a master's degree comes into a company and someone with a bachelor's degree comes into the company, that the company expects a higher proficiency in project management from the master. As I said before, I didn't see that difference in how it's been taught. But I can understand that the market, the employer's market, thinks about such level differences.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And one more question from Amin Saidu. Do you think that improving project management teaching in higher education can contribute to increasing importance of PM in the curriculum of many higher education institutions in the world where PM is still absent or not so highly ranked by students?
Oh, interesting question.
Yeah. Very interesting.
In Holland, we call this the chicken and the egg problem. Where do we start? If project management is really important, then improving project management teaching will arrive. But if we improve project management teaching, or for instance, if we start conveying the idea of project management already in primary schools, like the IPMA for Kids program, then we can create a better preparation for project management with our students as well. One of the things that struck me when doing my research is that almost any curriculum has project management somewhere in Holland. And of course, there are curricula that have it always, but there is one sort of curriculum that never has project management in it, and it's the educational curricula. So basically, we educate educators without teaching them anything about project management, and we let them loose in higher education and in primary school education, where a lot of changes are being done constantly, by changing laws, by changing ideas about how to teach. And those people have no preparation of how to do that using project management. And that's worrying me, because I think that's the basics of our educational system. And so in relation to this question, yes, of course, if we push on project management teaching, it will have an effect in other curricula, and it will have an effect on project management everywhere. But basically, we should look at one of the primary problems if project management is that it's not addressed in education. So I think that's a real omission by those educators.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for this interesting question, and this answer, Steven. And I see that one more question from Luis. But I suppose I changed a little this question. The question sounds like, what are the recommendations for including personal experience as a PM into the context of the class? But I want increase maybe this question a little. We always speaking about experience, about practical cases, and so on, maybe it means that we should invite only practitioners, only real experts, real PM in our class. Maybe we don't need to use just teachers. We need to invite more practical people, and they can share these ideas. What do you think about this? And should we include more and more practical experience in real education?
Yes, I think we should. And there were already all kinds of steps taken into this. What you can see is that some universities invite project managers as a sort of Dragon's Den presentation for the project plans. So that instead of a teacher with not too much project management trying to evaluate the project plans, let the real thing do this. We see that we have guest lecturers, and sometimes we have teachers with practical project management experience teaching, and it really helps how to teach it. Of course, from a didactical point of view, you need to be prepared that the project manager says something completely different than what's in the book.
Yeah, it's true.
I would like just to add one thought that it is a question. How much does it cost to invite a practitioner to the university? It costs much more than just a teacher. That's why maybe a solution can be that teachers of project management disciplines should be certified specialists, at least IPMA level D, for example, and inviting practitioners to do some practical lectures or to do some webinars, some master classes, to invite them for conferences, it will cost much lower than to invite them for a year.
Yeah.
Very good discussion point. Yes.
Yeah, very good comment. And also it's interesting because how I understand, Steven, you have more practitioner experience in steel industry and so on. And
yes.
as I know, Ekaterina, you have more academical experience, and it's really a good discussion from different perspective. What's better, more practitioner people or more academical people? And I see also comments from Alfreda and from Bill that project management shouldn't be allowed to teach unless they are first taught how to teach, because sometimes practitioner people, they really have great experience, but they don't know how to teach. What do you think about this question, Steven?
Well, and I can only say completely agree, Bill. You should not have any loose cannon aimed at students, because students need to experience that their learning environment is a safe environment. So those things should be really conveyed, and that's why I also concur with Ekaterina. It's quite expensive to have someone from outside the university teaching, because you need to understand how will this person act, how will they react, how will they teach. It's quite intensive, so it's difficult, and of course. Project managers without any teaching and grading experience should not be allowed to grade students' work as well. So there's a lot of things to be said about getting the experience inside. But it does help, in one of the previous questions, it does help the motivating part.
Yeah, thank you. It looks that we cover all our questions. You can help me, maybe we missed something, or if not, if all question.
Yes, I see the comment and one question from Mohammed Mahoud. Maybe we should take a look at it.
Yeah, super.
Dear Steven, from your perspective, how to conduct a throughout final assessment? As you know, assessment takes place before the implementation of the project and enables us to determine whether the project is worthwhile and feasible. For instance, we can use the SMART framework to analyze a project proposal or idea and compare it to the needs of the educational institution.
I'm happy with every suggestion of how to really assess. However, if I look at project management from my own perspective, I think if we really want to teach them project management, we should maybe through gamification have students do also the implementation phase, because in all the examples I saw of project-based learning in our in literature and in practice of project management teaching, it didn't exceed the planning stage. So students only do something on paper. And of course, we've discussed this, it's difficult to get them in the real world to do the project really. So that's where in the future, I think AI gamification can help us. But it should not be just a paper exercise. And there should be more than just looking before the implementation phase. Of course, project management is not just about writing the project plan or just about implementing the project plan. It's also about the initiation stage. It's also about making a business case, making a rough business case, seeing what the scope should be about, what are the stakeholders, a rough project brief, as it's called in Prince 2. That's something that we should teach our students as well, that you don't start with a big plan if you don't get a go on a idea.
Yes, and just to add that maybe it depends very much on the type of the project, yes, because if we're talking about event project, so successful event and a good report of the team can be the base for the assessment. Or if we're talking about startup project, okay, if the student launched its startup and it also has results, so it is a good result. So maybe it depends on the type of the project as well.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. And also, I saw that the bill also sent some comments about this, that we need to think about different product and also some projects. And how Ekaterina said, in entrepreneurial case, it can be completely different situation. If we have the good product in the end, sometimes we can skip some tools or something like that in a classical PM. And the time is super fast, to be honest. It's really deep discussion, and thank you all of our participants for this perfect question. But the last question is very interesting because I suppose it's about future. Thank you, Liz. What lectures of project management should be studying for being at the state of the art now and in the following years? How we can prepare for future? What we need to study as a lectures?
Oh, that's a difficult question, which I already asked my students to form a group of roughly 5 students to discuss what's project management in the future, or what should it look like, or how should it look like, how could it look like? Because if you look at IPMA and PMI, they all have and in their strategy, they want to make the profession progress and add value to the profession. But we don't know what that is. So it needs to be researched. There needs to be scenarios, because otherwise, like Alice in Wonderland, if you don't know where you want to go, any road will be okay.
Yeah, looks like that. Yeah, it's true. Ekaterina, do you want to add something again?
Yes, maybe we should ask ChatGPT. I'm wondering what it will answer.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay, I thank our speakers today, Steven, for the wonderful and interesting materials and for your great work as a researcher. It's really a lot of deep thoughts from today's presentation and discussion. Thank you. I also thank my moderator Ekaterina for the question and also some comments, which also very, very important. And dear participants, of course, I thank you for your questions and activity. It's wonderful question and very deep discussion. And for the fact that I'm happy that so many people try to develop project management and also teaching project management. It's very important. And in the end of our webinar, I want to say good luck with all your project and see you again. And also, if you have any suggestion or questions for Smarter University SIG, my email is in the chat. Do not hesitate to write to me directly, and we can find some solution for this, for some webinars or some mini events or some mini discussion. And also, I want to invite all people to our research group. You can send information about your research topic, and Ekaterina has a big experience to organize international group inside Smarter University SIG about different topics about project management. It's really nice to have you all here today in our webinar. Thank you. And small technical question, Steven, can we share your presentation for participant?
Yes, I will remove the typo and send you a new version shortly.
Super, super. Thank you.
Yes, just to add at the end, thank you, Veniamin, for initiating this event today. And I would also like to add that if you have some experience and you think that this experience could be interesting not only within your organization or within your country, it is a great opportunity to share our experience and to get this insight. So you can be the next speaker. Why not just send your ideas to Veniamin, that Veniamin, I had great experience. I want to talk about it, to discuss it. And maybe you'll be the next one.
Thank you. Thank you, guys, and thank you, participants, and see you in our next webinars and our new events. And I hope that we also can see in some events offline and touch each other and have more discussion in some nice places. Thank you all. See you again. Bye-bye.
Yes, goodbye.